Adventures in Mortuary Archaeology and Commemoration. It's Archaeodeath.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you'll have gathered, I've done quite a lot of work on Dyke-related subjects with Keith, not least on this one near where I live. It's been well known that there's been doubt about how much of the Dyke was built between North Herefordshire down to Redbrook along that white line. The work published in 2021 demonstrated that the Dyke was plainly continuous in that northern area, and also much of the route in that southern one. What I'm going to talk about is a few miles of that route north of Lidbrook in the south, make some observations, and then talk about next steps. This is a map of the Dyke in that Lidbrook English Bicknor area. Almost none of it is on the Ordnance Survey map, 600 or 800 metres, something like that, but there's much more really. It's also the case that the Dyke seems to have taken in the hugely visible viewpoints at Simmons Yat Hill Fort and also at the Buckstone further south off this map. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to start by showing you just how impressive the Dyke at English Bicknor actually is as a sort of base, and then we're going to go on a wander up the valley making further observations right up to the top of the map and then beyond. Okay, here you're walking along the back of an absolutely whopping bank. That is one very big bank, as you can see rising up here. This is the same feature from below, lowering in the woods. Very hard to see, so much of it is here because of the wood cover. You can get to see it in cross-section too, at a point where the Dyke has been completely demolished for about 60 yards. It looks like that you wouldn't notice at all if you looked at nothing else. The scale of this is huge. The demolition has wrecked it a bit. And there you see the Dyke on the right wandering off towards Lidbrook, completely hidden inside that tree line. Getting into the valley then, here you see a bank, a large bank. All of these things you'll see now, they're fragmentary, they're in bits, but they all run facing west at a fairly level contour. This huge bank here runs above a path which looks very much as if it was the ditch. I think it was a tramway at one stage too. And here on the right you can see the landscape up which these features run above the Wye. I took these photographs 2 or 3 weeks ago. Approaching Bishop's Wood, a bit further up the valley, there is this very large bank, and you can see it there in cross-section, where a road transects it, and you can see another cross-section a bit further down with a path. This is Keith pointing out a stone scatter on top of another section of bank at Bishop's Wood, and there are certainly other sections of it in inaccessible private woodland. That I took a few weeks ago opposite Goodrich Castle, so now right at the top end of that map, on the other side of the river. And this feature continues into a spinney. To give you scale, I would say 4 to 5 metres high, something like that. It's big. It also continues a bit that way, I think, as a cut-out change of slope at the back of some gardens. If so, 600 or 800 yards worth. So, if we make the assumption that this is all the Dyke, or represents the course of it at least, at this point, further up the valley, the Dyke builders would have had a choice. What's happening is that the river is wandering off west, and the high ground a little bit to the east. Some of the Victorian antiquarians like this route in the middle, up the B road. And one of them pointed out, just over here, a route through there on the existing footpath to the prominent river cliff at Ross. You can't test this now, housing has obliterated it. Absolutely no way to make any sense of it. On the other hand, the right-hand route continuing along that ridge looks more visible anyway, and 1 or 2 recent observations on Chase Hill just might support that. I say might carefully. I don't wish to be over-enthusiastic without proof. But Keith and I visited Chase Hill recently for a completely different reason. I wanted to know something about the hill fort. As you can see, Chase Hill is a very big, dominating affair. It's got a massive west-facing flank. Keith bounded off like a gazelle, and he found down here a west-facing bank, a big one, coming up the side of the hill. I've now traced it further, and I've got right down here. We need to do that properly, see if that's real, if it's really likely or possibly relevant, and see what on earth goes on in this area where the valley comes in. There's also, on the northern edge of the big hill fort there, right on the northern tip, there is another very curious feature. I asked Keith to accompany me there because I didn't understand it. Didn't look Iron Age to me. There is a monstrous bulwark. It could be part of the rampart, but it curves around the tip and it appears to support a flat area inside the hill fort, and the rest of it is not flat. Keith was immediately reminded of what he saw at Llanymynech, which he thought might well be a lookout point. Are these both highly visible lookout points? At this stage, I don't know. However, if you wanted to build one in this area, it would be one hell of a place. The northern tip of Chase Hill is hugely prominent. You can see it from a long way away. And as an observation spot, it's extraordinary. It also looks right across a swathe of land just to the west of Mercian control in the late 8th century. It looks across most of Ergin and just a where's where of places in early medieval history. It's extraordinary. So, to speculate a little, might it be the case that the Buckstone, Simonsiat Hill Fort, Chasewood Northern Tip are all part of a deliberately designed set of surveillance features, visible ones? It's a speculation. To speculate even further, and a very long way actually, are some other features further north, including ones with intriguing names like Lookout Place. Are they part of the game? Just down into Ross-on-Wye itself, and these would work for coming down from the hill. Keith showed that earlier, well, he mentioned it earlier. Very startling. Supports the school playing field. This is a rough lane. It's even more startling because a bit further north, the same bank in a squidged fashion plainly has bungalows built on it. And that, on the right, is a bank inside the landscape graveyard, heading straight along the top of the river cliff, just above the slope where it drops off to the cliff itself. Did the landscapers put it there? Was it there in the first place? No idea, but it's interesting. So, I'm not making the suggestion that everything I've shown is necessarily the Dyke, nor that the route of the Dyke here is clear. What I am suggesting is that there is a serious prima facie case for proper investigation. And over the next couple of years, we are intending to do that using whatever techniques are appropriate and taking a highly collaborative approach to it. So we ask or invite the right people to work on it, as well as local people. And the final thing I wanted to say was about this last remaining section, this complete gap here between Ross and Hereford. Is it real? Well, there's plenty to assess for sure. There is an extraordinary collection, a cluster of place names around here, of which a small selection is put up there, some of which are really very interesting. There are also a number of linear earthworks that need explanation. Keith showed one earlier, and there are others. Very strange and very unexpected. I don't know what they are, but they need explaining. So the underpinning question is straightforward, isn't it? Might it be the case that the Dyke was continuous right through Herefordshire? And is it simply that we're seeing fragmentary survival because the land use here has been very, very intensive? Hereford today looks like a rural idyll. For many centuries it wasn't. Ironworks, quarrying, lime kilns, lime pits, intensive agriculture, all of it. The fact that you can find anything might be the surprising bit. Okay, thank you.
Follow Archaeodeath on WordPress, or you'll never learn.